Ini berbasis media briefing, jadi sifatnya akan lebih banyak ke paparan sepanjang 30 menit dari kami, lalu 20 menit dari kami, lalu nanti 10 menit ada diskusi dan setengah jam untuk Q&A, untuk tanya jawab. So, hello everyone, warm greetings from SafeNet and OpenNet Association. SafeNet is a Bali-based digital rights organization, while OpenNet Association is Korea-based digital rights organization. So both these organization is want to protect digital rights in the region, so Southeast Asia and also East Asia. Together we collaborate to help this media briefing. We invite you, the journalists, and also people who really get to know about this issue, about the net neutrality on the RPP postal here. And we will use this today's agenda to explain the problems that we think is very important to be noticed. Kita akan membagi waktunya tadi ya 20 menit untuk paparan, lalu sementara 10 menit untuk diskusi dan 30 menit untuk pertanyaan. So we divide the rundown as below. So 20 minutes for the SafeNet and also OpenNet Association to explain a bit about the problems inside the Article 15 of RPP Postal Siar. And then we use 10 minutes for discussion and 30 minutes for Q&A. So let me begin. Without further ado, I will start with the explanation first, and then about the background, and then later on, Professor Park from OpenNet Association will follow with the problems and what to see inside the Article 15 RPP Postal. Untuk mempersingkat waktu, saya akan mulai. Pertama-tama, terima kasih teman-teman sudah hadir di sini di dalam media briefing yang diadakan oleh SafeNet dan OpenNet Association. Kami melihat ada ancaman terhadap hak digital dalam RPP Postal Siar. Pertama-tama, untuk menjelaskan sampai ke inti masalah, mungkin ada baiknya kami sedikit cerita tentang latar. Jadi, pemerintah Indonesia saat ini sedang mengejar pembuatan 55 rancangan peraturan pemerintah turunan dari Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja atau Omnibus Law yang sudah disahkan pada tahun 2020 lalu. Salah satu RPP yang kini menjadi sorotan, terutama masyarakat sipil, adalah RPP Postal Siar. SafeNet dan juga OpenNet pada hari ini akan melihat dalam kacamata perspektif hak digital. Tetapi saya tahu misalnya beberapa kawan dari beberapa jaringan juga melihat dari perspektif broadcast. Nah, RPP Postal Siar yang sebetulnya masih draft ya sekarang, ini merupakan pemerintah dalam kapasitas yang disusun oleh Menteri Koordinator Bidang Perekonomian.
Oke, Tante. Terima kasih. Jadi dipindah. Yang nomor 2.
Oke, RPP Postal Siar ini merupakan rancangan peraturan yang disusun oleh Menteri Koordinator Bidang Perekonomian dan Menteri Komunikasi dan Informatika. Jadi ada dua kementerian yang bertanggung jawab untuk menyusun RPP Postal Siar. Sejauh ini sudah ada 2 draft yang beredar. Kita bisa lihat dalam website Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, yaitu draft tanggal 5 Januari 2021, dan draft terakhir yang kami gunakan sebagai analisis hari ini adalah 30 Januari 2021. So, let me explain a bit in English. So, basically, now the government of Indonesia is pursuing to make a 55 government regulation that derived from the job creation law. So one of them is the RPP Postal Siar. So this regulation, so this government regulation actually built by the ministry coordinating Minister of Economic and also the MICT, the Minister of Information and Communication. So far there are 2 drafts that being distributed. The first one is the 5th January 2021, and the latest that we use for the analysis is the 30 January 2021. So I will bring the next slide to you, Ms. Professor, about after we know about the background, and then we will explain a bit about the problems. I will ask Professor Park to explain to us what is net neutrality, why this is not B2B, this is not a business, and why should the state should protect the digital rights, and also what is the experience that Korea so far had in while having the same law about this allowing the violation of net neutrality. The time is yours, Professor.
Okay, thank you. So let me start with a short video explaining net neutrality. Let's see. Okay, wait just for a second. Okay, let's see. What is it? Okay. Okay, give me a few minutes. No, give me a few seconds.
Yes, we can see the video.
Okay. So net neutrality is really about how the internet works. There are countries that have net neutrality in the law and countries that do not. But net neutrality is so indistinguishable, so embedded in how the internet works, that even the countries without net neutrality regulation are already abiding by net neutrality. This is where it comes from. So let's say there are 2 computers. You need to connect them. You want the computers to connect or communicate with one another without any gatekeeper, without any without something in the middle. So you have to have when you connect them, if you want each computer to connect with all other computers, you need too many connections, right? There is a Ethernet technology, but that cannot connect all the people. So you connect all the Ethernet, all the different networks through routers, and it is through the routers that data packets travel around the world. And this network of networks, internetwork, becomes the internet. Now, how do we do that? How do we make the computers talk to all other computers Well, we give each computer an IP address, Internet Protocol address, and then each computer makes a promise that it will deliver, it will take data packet from its neighboring router to another neighboring router that is closer to the destination. And if all routers keep this promise that they'll deliver any data packet, regardless of content, regardless of payment, then you don't need to connect all these routers with one another, right? If you try to connect 5 routers, you'll need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You'll need 10 connections here, but if the routers keep the promise of delivering other routers messages, then you just need 4 cables. This way, each computer, so if there are 100 routers that you want to connect so that they can communicate directly one another, if you try to actually physically connect all of them, you'll need 4,950 connections. But if each router keeps the promise of delivering just 1 notch toward the destination to the neighboring router, then you just need 9 connections. 4,950 connections versus 9 connections. That's the efficiency of the internet. And that promise that all the routers will deliver the data package to their neighbors without any condition, without any payment, without any delivery fee, that promise is basically net neutrality. And it's better known as a non-discrimination principle, but it has economic principle that there should not be a delivery fee. There should not be economic condition of delivering to the next to the neighbor. But to become part of the network, you have to connect with at least 1 router to enjoy this communication where there is no delivery fee. To maintain the physical connection, there can be connection fee, right? So as long as you pay for connection, and you are connected to at least 1 router that is part of the part of the internet, then you can enjoy free communication without any consideration for delivery fee. Let me explain to you a little bit more about delivery fee. Okay. Okay, what is access? Well, I said delivery fee, but what I meant was access fee or connection fee. The fee that you have to pay to become part of the internet so that you can communicate directly with all other computers that are connected to the internet without any payment for a delivery fee. So that access fee works like this. So there's this router and this so this is a small network with 1 router with 4 computers, and one of the computer is what you're using, and your router has to be connected with the existing router that is connected to the internet that is on the right side. And that connection has to be paid for, and that fee is usually proportional to the capacity of the connection, and that connection is usually made by ISP because people don't have technology to do so. But that is access fee. That is not delivery fee. Now, against the net neutrality, if all the routers try to get paid for delivering the data packet, see what happens, right? So data packets are delivered, so you get paid for delivering the fee, then there will be so much transaction cost that the internet will just disintegrate. So that's how that's why on internet there can be access fee or connection fee, but there should not be delivery fee. Now, I have this, what is it? Okay. Okay, then what is wrong with the Article 15 mandatory partnership? The idea, I believe, comes from this thinking that a lot of traffic comes from content providers, and therefore content providers must somehow pay the telcos for delivering that extra traffic to their users. But as I said before, the connection fee is different from delivery fee. Now, delivery fee has been named different things, and the fee for delivering is paid by the sender usually. So it's called the sending party network pays principle. So delivery fee is the money that is paid by the sender to the receiver or receiving network for delivering the data to the end users who are consuming that data. Usually, because it's to the end users, it's also called a termination fee. But let me show you how network neutrality is ingrained in international standard. Here, California Network Neutrality Act 2118. So this is the law that state of California passed when Trump government canceled the net neutrality order issued by FCC in 2015. So if you look at 3101, it says it shall be unlawful for ISP to engage in requiring consideration. Consideration means payment, right? Payment from an edge provider. Edge provider means content provider in exchange for delivering the internet traffic to and from the ISP's end users, right? It's clear. Now, some people discount the meaning of California net neutrality law, but just last week, Biden administration, now this law was suspended because Trump administration's Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the law to prohibit the law from being implemented. But Biden administration just last week filed a motion that DOJ, Department of Justice, will no longer oppose implementation of net neutrality law. And FCC 2015 Open Internet Order has this provision I highlighted. No blocking rule prohibits broadband providers from charging edge providers, again, content providers, a fee to avoid having the content blocked from the provider, the ISP's end user customer, right? And then you come to Europe. BEREC is like FCC for all of the US. When European Telecom Network Operator Association made a proposal back in 2011 to charge termination fee, BEREC responded saying that IP interconnection agreements only involve the provision of a capacity of the interconnection link, not to end-to-end transmission of particular data flows across different autonomous IP networks. Unlike voice traffic, data does not travel over exclusive dedicated network connection. It is not possible to ascertain the nature or volume of a particular data flow. Therefore, charging for IP connection takes place only on the capacity, right? It has to be only connection fee. But ETNO, the telecom network operators' proposal for SPNP, standing party network pay approach, is totally antagonistic to the efficient routing approach of the internet. This focus on charging based on actual volume or value of traffic would represent a dramatic change from the existing framework of the internet. So that is a problem with the mandatory partnership. We are very worried that it will basically create a delivery fee that should not be applicable to the internet. I can show you what happened in Korea when we allowed SPNP partially between ISPs. Can I have 3-4 more minutes?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Please, Professor.
All right. Here we go. Again, I'm going to show you this video. So Korea is the only country in the whole world that instituted standing party network pays between ISPs. So the ISP that's sending data to another ISP has to pay the receiving network for delivering it to the end users, right? So originally it was only between ISPs, but see what happens, right? Just because it is between, so here there are 3 ISPs in the center, right? 3 ISPs, and then each ISP pays money to other ISP for receiving the data, and that creates a problem because now if I'm an ISP, if I host killer contents like Facebook cache server, or if I host KakaoTalk, you know, this is very popular chat app in Korea. If I host a very popular content, a lot of data will be coming from me to other ISP, and I have to pay the other ISP, which means it makes it very disadvantageous for me to host popular content, which means that I'll have incentive to increase, right? I'll not have incentive to decrease the connection fee or internet access fee I charge to my to the content provider on my network. That has increased the IP transit fee because there is no competition among ISPs to host popular content, and see how much internet transit fee, IP transit fee has increased. So that's Korea's IP transit fee for 1 megabyte per second. That is 8 times. That is like 8 times Paris, 5 times New York, like 6 times London, and because of that, some ISPs actually shift the burden of SPNP payment to the content providers directly, and some content providers have to pay a lot of money, which means the small ISPs that cannot make the payment will run away from the Korea market. And actually, if you interview small to mid-sized content providers, a lot of them will not have the server in Korea, but will go to the US or will leave the Korean network so that they don't have to pay high internet access fees. That will kill content diversity. So I'm hoping that Indonesia does not follow what Korea is doing, and because making this partnership mandatory, I mean, there is already partnership, right? Because already the content providers are paying internet access fees to the ISPs. All content providers are bringing, spending money to bring data to the doorstep of Indonesian ISPs. But if the law requires some other partnership, I'm worried that partnership will be interpreted as some sort of payment for extra traffic, which is a delivery fee, and it will institute sending party network pays system. Also, paragraph 6 of Article 15 is also problematic. It says ISPs can do traffic management for national interest and quality of services. Now, reasonable network management is allowed all the time. But if you look at 2015 EU Open Internet Regulation, which is the net neutrality law of Europe, it is limited only to the situation when you have to comply with the legal obligations or for security, meaning preventing like DDoS attack and things like that, or hacking. Or, the network can always fail temporarily. So you can do network management for temporary purposes. But doing traffic management for national interest and quality of services, that's in paragraph 6 of Article 15. That's just too broad. That can allow paid prioritization, network slicing, zero rating. I'm not opposing. I'm not saying I oppose every one of it. I'm saying that if it is allowed, it should be allowed with strict conditions that abide by network neutrality. And Indonesia doesn't have a general net neutrality regulation. If you want to have this law that allows some network slicing or some zero rating, paid prioritization, I mean, that should be banned all the time. I mean, that's absolute no. But if you're going to allow traffic management for broad reasons like national interest and quality of services, you first have to have net neutrality regulation. So I'll stop there. Sorry for taking a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Park. Ya, itu teman-teman ya, penjelasan dari Profesor Park tentang apa itu netralitas jaringan atau net neutrality, sesuatu yang tadi dijelaskan lewat video oleh Profesor Park, sangat teknikal, tetapi ini mungkin dengan mudah dapat kita pahami secara pengamatan, terutama karena Indonesia, seperti yang dikatakan oleh Profesor Park, kita tidak punya regulasi atau aturan tentang netralitas jaringan, tapi yang ada justru sekarang lewat RPP Postelsiar pasal 15, ayat 1 dan ayat 6, justru kita melihat netralitas jaringan justru dilanggar, dan bukannya malah ditegakkan dengan regulasi khusus, tapi malah dilanggar. Saya akan kembali meminta waktu teman-teman mungkin untuk sedikit menjelaskan, karena ini isu yang menurut saya tidak mudah. Jujur saja buat Indonesia ini sudah 2 kali kita punya pembahasan tentang net netralitas jaringan, tetapi selalu agak susah untuk menjelaskannya secara sederhana. Jadi teman-teman, kawan-kawan di sini, sebelum nanti kita buka diskusinya, netralitas jaringan itu kan sudah tadi dicontohkan di Korea ya, tapi sebenarnya di Indonesia itu sudah ada. Sudah ada dari zaman ketika rame-rame dulu Telkom Group memblokir layanan Netflix. Ya, kalau teman-teman ingat, itu adalah salah satu contoh bagaimana netralitas jaringan kalau dibiarkan pada mekanisme pasar akan jadi seperti yang terjadi pada Telkom Group dan Netflix. Waktu itu saya ingat betul bahwa alasan dari Telkom Group menggunakan justifikasi tentang pornografi, tetapi sebetulnya kita tahu persis bahwa problemnya adalah ketidaksenangan Telkom Group karena tidak bisa membuat kerjasama dengan Netflix. Dan saya rasa dari sini pengalamannya kita lihat selama tahun 2016 sampai 2020 Juli kemarin Netflix kan diblokir di layanan Telkom Group. Nah, menarik juga di Indonesia juga dilanjutkan dengan kerjasama antara Disney Hotstar dan juga Telkomsel Maxstream. Itu juga salah satu bentuk pelanggaran dari netralitas jaringan, tetapi di Indonesia itu sepi dibicarakan. Banyak orang kemudian mengatakan bahwa itu hanya urusan bisnis, termasuk juga Menteri Kominfo yang dulu maupun yang sekarang sama saja merespon bahwa itu masalah hubungan bisnis. Padahal sebetulnya kalau diserahkan pada mekanisme pasar, maka yang terjadi adalah seperti yang dijelaskan oleh Profesor Park, untuk akses kita harus membayar, lalu nanti kemudian ada diskriminasi dalam speed atau kecepatan layanan. Dan itu bisa berdampak cukup banyak, karena dampaknya adalah dalam konteks Korea, pengalaman di Korea, bagaimana harga akses internet biayanya meningkat. Lalu yang kedua, bisnis startup dan juga usaha UMKM skala kecil dan menengah memilih untuk pindah ke negara lain gitu, mencari biaya yang lebih murah. Lalu yang ketiga adalah tidak adanya keberagaman konten, dan itu pasti ujung-ujungnya adalah merugikan hak digital warga. Nah, secara statement, Safenet sendiri menilai bahwa RPP Postelsiar ini kelihatan lebih mengutamakan pelaku bisnis daripada hak warga untuk mengakses informasi. Dan secara fokus kami memang hanya mempersoalkan satu pasal saja di RPP Postelsiar, yaitu pasal 15, khususnya ayat 1 dan ayat 6. Ayat 1 bicara soal kerjasama usaha yang tadi dijelaskan oleh Profesor Park. Kewajiban kerjasama usaha itu justru akan menjadi pintu dari praktek-praktek yang tidak diinginkan ya, ketika harga atau biaya akses itu kemudian meningkat. Lalu yang kedua, adanya pembolehan pengelolaan traffic yang berbeda kalau misalnya ada perusahaan yang bekerja sama dan atau tidak bekerja sama. Jadi itu ada perbedaan layanan. Nah, dari 2 poin atau 2 ayat yang ada dalam pasal 15 ini, sebetulnya teman-teman bisa membaca bagaimana ada upaya memindahkan praktek yang tadinya hanya dilakukan di BUMN Telkom Group, sekarang dilakukan secara nasional. Nah, sederhananya sebetulnya kenapa netralitas jaringan itu perlu dilindungi ya. Pertama, kita tidak ingin hal-hal yang tertera di dalam layar ini terjadi, seperti tadi sudah dijelaskan, dan kita menuntut sebetulnya dalam kesempatan ini kepada pemerintah selagi membincangkan rancangan peraturan pemerintah tentang postal siar ini, dong kalau memang Indonesia ingin mengembangkan ekonomi digital, caranya itu justru bukan menentang dari netralitas jaringan, tetapi pemerintah Indonesia harus membuat undang-undang tentang netralitas jaringan. Seperti yang dikatakan oleh Profesor Park, jangan korbankan hak digital warga untuk kepentingan pengusaha, jadi kita semua harus membayar lebih hanya karena untuk kepentingan pengusaha-pengusaha. Dan karena itu kita berdua, SafeNet dan OpenNet Association, kita menentang dan mengharapkan pasal 15 dari RPP Postal Siar ini dihapuskan. Semoga penjelasan pemaparan dari kami berdua, dari OpenNet Association dan juga SafeNet ini bisa dipahami. Karena waktu terbatas, saya kira sekarang kita gunakan waktunya untuk berdiskusi. Silakan teman-teman, di sini ada Mas Rofi Udarojat dari Indonesia E-Commerce Association atau IDEA. Mas Rofi is a member of no representation from the IDEA, Indonesian E-Commerce Association. Aku mau minta pendapat dari Mas Rofi. Boleh Mas, biar kita juga cukup mendengar kalau penjelasan dari masyarakat mewakili digital rights kan seperti ini, mungkin dari teman-teman pelaku usaha bagaimana? Waktu dan kesempatan saya berikan, Mas Rofi. Halo, Mas Rofi. Atau teman-teman yang lain, ada Mbak Dian di sini dari lawyer, dan juga ada Gading dari pengacara juga. Mungkin mau berbagi perspektif. Halo. Semoga bukan terpotong karena makan siang ya. Oh, Professor Park, do you have anything else to add?
No, not at this point. I think that I hope that all the attendants read our statement and ask any question.
Yeah, I already sent the statement to everyone here actually.
Okay.
Do you have any questions? Debo atau Mas Kori dari Tempo? Actually a lot of media here. Mas Arief, do you have any questions? Pertanyaan Mas, bahasa Indonesia juga nggak apa-apa. Nanti saya terjemahkan. Mas Agustinus da Costa. Because this is a tough topic actually. Netralitas jaringan.
Yeah.
Net neutrality is actually for Indonesian is people actually don't really care because they don't see like we have that discussion in 2016 where I've had the Ajit Pai, right, from the FCC do the agree with the Trump to remove the net neutrality protection in US. In the same time, in Indonesia, we have those problem with the Telkom group who practice the discrimination towards the Netflix. But here, people don't, I don't know, people don't see it as a problem. So actually, your video, Professor Park, is quite, it's easy for people to understand what is how net neutrality should protect the internet. And without net neutrality, what happened? Because people have to pay a lot to access the information, and also there is a discrimination. Like I see it like a toll road. Whenever you go to the toll road, people who pay more, they get a freer way to access, while people who don't want to spend more, they have to, they have a traffic jam.
Right.
And
Right.
there is a problem to access the information.
Right. Right.
Mas Gading, ada respon Mas Gading?
Ya, izin Mas Damar.
Ya,
dan Prof, maaf tadi ada sedikit ini. Ya, memang isu mengenai net neutrality ini masih sangat baru ya dari saya sendiri, karena memang terkait dengan RPP-nya saya juga baru dapat, dan saya memang berniat ingin mengkaji juga bagaimana dari aspek khususnya perlindungan konsumen ya, karena tadi lihat dari presentasi kemudian review sebentar pasal 15-nya itu tidak hanya bersinggungan dengan hak digital warga negara, tapi juga ini bersinggungan dengan aspek perlindungan konsumen yang setiap pengguna, setiap user dan juga setiap konsumen yang menggunakan jaringan harus diperlakukan setara dan sama. Nah, ini menarik untuk kita tarik ke sudut pandang Undang-Undang 8 tahun 99 tentang perlindungan konsumen. Karena memang khawatir ketika kajian sepintas, kalau saya baca di pasal 15 tersebut, memang khawatir kalau beban biaya itu dibebankan ke warga negara, setiap warga negara tidak mendapatkan hak yang sama untuk mengakses jaringan-jaringan yang dia miliki, dan itu berdampak pada keragaman konten yang akan mereka peroleh. Apalagi sifatnya kalau kita merujuk ke hak digital masyarakat, seharusnya freedom of expression dan juga freedom of information itu harus dipenuhi oleh pemerintah. Itulah kenapa relevansinya, urgensinya negara harus hadir di sini, bukan untuk membatasi atau menghilangkan ya aspek netralitas jaringan, tapi juga harus memastikan tegaknya konsep netralitas jaringan itu sendiri. Nah, tadi sih presentasi dari Mas Damar sama Prof. Kim ya, memang aspek pelindungan konsumen ini jadi kajian yang harus jadi referensi utama juga, dilibatkan sebagai salah satu sudut pandang atau pisau analisis untuk mengkaji pasal 15 ini. Tadi juga tadi ya Mas ya, aku minta RPP-nya ke Mas Damar, dan aku tertarik untuk mengkaji mengenai pasal 15 tersebut. Itu sih.
Ya, oke.
Ya, tapi kita juga ini ya kan, kita juga mesti memahami juga bagaimana ekosistem pelaku usaha digital ini merespon potensi pembatasan netralitas jaringan ini, karena jangan sampai harus ada titik keseimbangan lah antara penjaminan hak digital masyarakat dan juga memastikan terciptanya ekosistem pelaku usaha khususnya digital itu juga berjalan dengan baik, kan begitu.
Ya. Nah, ini sangat menarik Gading masukannya. So Professor Park, Gading here respond to you, to us with the perspective of consumer protection. So he said that not only from digital rights but also from consumer protection point of view, this RPP post tertiary is actually harming the consumer. So he wants to study and also review the RPP post tertiary, and hopefully we can work together, collaboration. Actually, Mas Gading, very open. And then aku tertarik sebetulnya tadi merespon Mas Gading ya, terutama untuk mendengar pendapat dari pelaku usaha. Tadi pagi sebenarnya saya komunikasi dengan Bima Laga, he's the head of Indonesian E-commerce Association. Nah, sebenarnya sudah ada wakilnya di sini, Mas Rofi, tapi kita belum dengar pendapatnya. Barangkali bisa menyampaikan pendapat di kesempatan ini. Silakan, Mas Rofi. Waktu dan kesempatan saya berikan.
Iya, terima kasih Mas Damar atas kesempatannya. Selamat siang semua teman-teman di sini. Ini kita memang kemarin juga sempat sudah mengikuti dari sebentar. Ya, kita sudah mengikuti isu ini dari bulan Januari. Memang ketika bergulir karena memang ini bukan RPP yang kita awalnya lihat sebagai satu yang berkaitan dengan asosiasi kami, karena asosiasi kami adalah asosiasi dari platform digital. Memang kita berawal dari e-commerce, tapi kita berkembang menjadi asosiasi dari ekosistem digital. Tapi melihat perkembangannya, kelihatannya memang yang diatur adalah salah satunya platform digital. Di draft yang pertama itu masih pakai platform digital. Kemudian kalau tidak salah di draft terakhir diubah menjadi pelaku usaha internet, atau kalau saya tidak salah. Kalau kami intinya melihat bahwa memang ini kan memang semangatnya kalau dari pemerintah inginnya adalah ada kemudahan investasi segala macam gitu ya. Tapi kami melihat bahwa justru dengan adanya persyaratan bahwa itu adalah mandatory ataupun kewajiban, maka itu akan jadi barrier to entry ya bagi perusahaan internet ataupun platform digital dalam mendirikan bisnisnya di Indonesia, karena platform yang terdampak adalah tidak hanya OTT asing tapi juga OTT dalam negeri atau lokal ya. Jadi platform lokal juga bisa berpotensi terdampak gitu ya. Kemudian yang kedua, kalau kami lihat memang dari dampaknya dari RPP ini juga bisa memberikan semacam perlakuan atau treatment yang mungkin tidak equal begitu ya antara satu industri dengan industri yang lain ya. Dalam hal ini industri telco atau telekomunikasi ya seakan-akan ditempatkan di atasnya kemudian industri digital begitu ya. Karena industri digital ketika ingin beroperasi begitu ya harus mendapatkan dalam tanda kutip izin ataupun kerjasama dari telco. Itu membuat semacam posisi ataupun perlakuan yang tidak setara begitu. Jadi seakan-akan digital harus di bawahnya industri telekomunikasi begitu. Tapi kita lihat sih memang sebenarnya kalau di draft yang terakhir kita lihat memang kewajibannya itu sudah dihilangkan begitu ya, walaupun kita tidak tahu apa hasil akhirnya begitu. Sehingga mudah-mudahan sih kalau dari kami sudah menyurati pemerintah bahwa ya tentu kalau bisa pasal 14 atau sekarang pasal 15 begitu ya, tentu disesuaikan agar investasi sebagai semangatnya dari Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja itu ya bisa terlaksana sesuai dengan dengan semangatnya dan berlaku pada aturan-aturan turunannya. Kira-kira itu Mas Damar dari saya Mas kira-kira.
Oke, Mas Rofi. Actually, saya akan gunakan translation sedikit ya, Mas Rofi ya, biar teman-teman di Korea juga mengikuti.
Silakan.
Jadi dari from point of view of Indonesian E-commerce Association, actually they think that this PP Postal Siar will give a barrier to do their business because they have to do cooperation with the telco company. That means the telco company is on the top of it. So everything that running on the platform digital follow the telco company. And then the other thing is about there's a big difference between the first draft and the second draft, Professor Park, because in the first draft, one of the entity that should follow the PP Postal Siar is include the marketplace and also digital platform. But the second draft, actually they already wipe out that. We should check again. We should check again on the second draft. And then the third things about the thing that IDEA already done. They have communicated with the ministry, and then they want to make this RPP Postal Siar is really not harming the digital ecosystem in Indonesia. So dari pertanyaan dari pernyataan Mas Rofi tadi, saya mau nyambung pertanyaan dari Mas Kori ya dari Tempo. apakah sejauh ini sudah ada komunikasi dari pihak pemerintah dan SafeNet mengenai RPP Postal Siar ini? Sudah ada pertemuankah dan bagaimana tanggapan mengenai tuntutan yang disebutkan tadi? Mas Kori, kami dua organisasi ini, kami baru saja selesai membuat pernyataan, jadi langkah yang akan kami lakukan segera setelah ini adalah mengirimkan surat keberatan kami ini kepada pemerintah, dalam hal ini lewat Kominfo, untuk mengerti bahwa memang ada keberatan dari organisasi masyarakat sipil terhadap isi dari pasal 15 RPP Postal Siar. Jadi sejauh ini kita baru mau mulai langkah tersebut. So, Professor Park and also Kyomi, there is a question from Cory from Tempo Magazine, Tempo Media, whether we have already communicated with the government about this RPP Postal Siar, and is there any meeting with them? Is there any response from the government toward our demand? So I already explained to him that we so far already send this statement to the media first, and then we will send it to the government after this meeting. So I fully. Do you have any additional comment, Professor?
There is one. Article 15, paragraph 1 can be really harmful to all content providers and therefore all the users, because there is no limitation on with which ISP you have to have a partnership with, right? I mean, all content providers are making connection with at least one ISP within Indonesia to operate within Indonesia, right? But that data, but the data doesn't stay within that ISP's network. It goes to second ISP's network for the if the users of the second ISP request visit that content provider's website, and it can also go through third ISP as well. So, I mean, does this mean that the content provider that is hosted in ISP1 has to have partnership with not just one ISP1, but ISP2 and ISP3 as well? The law has no limitation on how many partnerships that they have to have. So, what if ISP1 charges just a connection fee, but ISP wants to charge termination fee, and ISP3 also wants to charge termination fee? Then each content provider within Indonesia has to pay 3 times, 4 times what they are paying to obtain internet access. That can be really bad. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Professor Park. Mas Arief, boleh bertanya langsung aja, Mas? Mas Arief, tadi nulis soalnya di ini, private chat, direct message. Silakan Mas, bertanya Mas. Okay, there are questions, 2 questions, from 3 questions from Liputan 6. Arief from Liputan 6. Seberapa besar dampaknya? Terkait dengan pembatasan sinyalir akan dilakukan melalui peraturan ini, kira-kira apakah ada alternatif bagi pelaku dan peminat hak-hak digital menyikapi ini? Lalu yang kedua, seberapa besar dampaknya pada ekosistem internet di Indonesia ke depan, selain dari kerugian-kerugian yang tadi disampaikan. Lalu terkait pembatasan yang diskriminatif, sama ya. Oke, 2 pertanyaan berarti ya. Betul ya Mas Arief ya, 2 pertanyaan. So there is questions, Professor Park, for you and me. The first one is, with this limitation from this draft, actually, what is the alternative for the people who wants to do the business, and then people who wants to protect the digital rights? The second question is, how big is the impact to the internet ecosystem in Indonesia in the future? So there are 2 questions. So I will start by answering. The first one, yang pertama Mas Arief, saya rasa kalau scalable atau skalanya sekarang diperbesar ya. Jadi tadinya kita melihat praktek itu dilakukan hanya pada BUMN Telkom Group gitu yang dimiliki oleh pemerintah Indonesia, dan sekarang ini prakteknya diperluas kepada seluruh ISP yang ada di Indonesia. Maka tidak kemungkinan kita untuk bisa keluar dari ekosistem atau pembatasan-pembatasan ini adalah keluar dari ekosistemnya. Itu yang seperti yang pernah terjadi di Korea, di mana orang kemudian memilih untuk berusaha di luar dari negara tersebut karena mencari negara yang tidak diskriminatif dalam menerapkan netralitas jaringan. Lalu yang kedua, dampak bagi ekosistem sebetulnya ya sangat bertolak belakang antara Indonesia sekarang ingin punya ekosistem digital ekonomi yang kuat, karena kita visi dari Presiden adalah memiliki ekonomi digital, tetapi kalau model seperti ini justru diundang-undangkan dan tetap ada di dalam RPP Postasiar dan sampai kemudian nanti disahkan, itu akan berdampak sangat besar karena tidak ada jaminan kita bisa memberi ruang pada pelaku-pelaku usaha yang baru tumbuh. Jadi pelaku-pelaku usaha perintisan, startup yang kecil dan menengah tidak mungkin akan bisa berkompet dengan yang besar-besar yang sudah lebih established. Dan saya rasa di situ kelemahan dari adanya praktek tersebut justru itu menjadi tidak muncul ekosistem yang beragam. Tidak muncul ekosistem yang baru yang bisa mengalahkan yang sudah menjadi raksasa sekarang. Itu jawaban dari saya. Barangkali dari OpenNet Association, do you want to answer, Professor Park?
Sure. Internet is, I want to say 2 things. Internet is a beautiful thing. It is not revolutionary technology, but it is a revolutionary promise. It is a social contract that protects freedom of speech for everybody. So even if this law even if this regulation passes, the internet access fees, the cost of accessing the internet will still go down. Every year, the internet connection fee is going down by 20% around the world. That is because more and more computers want to connect with one another. More and more computers are, or more and more networks are merging with each other for free. We call that peering. More and more peering connections are happening. There are more and more connections between computers. So it's becoming cheaper and cheaper for ISP to provide the full connectivity to all of its customers. So you may think that next year, Indonesia internet access fee goes down by 10%. You think that, oh, okay, well, it's going down. But that is actually that is really bad for Indonesia, because in other parts of the world, it is going down by 20%, right? That means there is a less communication, less online business, online commerce, online discourse within Indonesia. The second thing I want to say is that after, so Korea began sending party network pays rule in 2016. So in Korea, the internet access fees was going down the same as the rest of the world until 2016. But in 2016, the world internet access fees was going down like this. Korea's internet access fee was not coming down. Korea's internet access fee was still high. So what happened? Korean internet companies like Naver and Kakao, they could not provide competitive services. For instance, video services that take up a lot of bandwidth. They could not do that because now they had to pay just too much money to the ISPs. Even now, do you guys like Korean dramas, Korean TV dramas, Korean movies? And let's say you want to watch something on, Korea's YouTube, Korean portals like Naver and Kakao. You will find the video. You try to play it, you cannot play it because Naver and Kakao could not pay all the internet access fees that they'll be charged by their Korean ISPs. So what happened? They completely lost the competition with the YouTube. YouTube's market share went up to while it was going, originally before 2016, Kakao and Naver, their video services were competitive. They had they had more than 50%, 60% market share. But after 2016, they lost the market little by little to YouTube. Right now in Korea, very, very small market share in video services. They just lost everything, right? That is, you can say, so what? Koreans are enjoying YouTube instead of Naver and Kakao. Well, Indonesians should have, or Koreans should have a right to enjoy the local services, and enjoying local services is always different from enjoying foreign services. Okay. Now, of course, because of that, now the Korean ISPs are trying to charge higher prices to foreign content providers as well, right? So they are charging high on local and using that as an argument to charge high on foreign content providers, which will really kill the internet ecosystem.
Thank you, Profesor Park. Teman-teman, masih ada pertanyaan lagi karena kita sudah sampai di penghujung dari acara. Kalau ada pertanyaan, silakan diajukan. Silakan. Monggo, silakan.
Menarik soal bagaimana content provider just di Korea. Nah, terhadap media kan salah satu content provider juga. Apakah ada impact-nya terhadap media di Korea dengan menambah cost-nya lagi gitu. Nah, di Indonesia ke depan apakah ini juga akan berdampak ke media mainstream gitu. Dan selanjutnya ke media-media platform yang tidak bisnis. Dari tadi kan kita berbicara bisnis. Bagaimana media yang sistemnya crowdfunding atau platform yang diciptakan untuk menjual sesuatu untuk tujuan kemanusiaan begitu. Nah, apakah itu akan berdampak ke depannya? Thank you.
Ini ditujukan ke Profesor Park ya berarti ya, Debo?
Iya, termasuk Mas Damar juga untuk konteks Indonesia.
Yeah, Professor Park, there is a question from Debo. He asked about what is the impact of this net neutrality to the media in Korea? Is there any impact for their business? And the second one, it's not only about the business entity. Is there any impact to the non-business entity like the community service or the media and the non-profit media who wants maybe very popular, but they get implication of this policy in Korea?
Sure, I can give you example of COVID-19 apps. So because of COVID-19, a lot of contact tracing are happening, and now the government has data about where the patients have gone, right? The restaurants that the patient has gone, the places that patients have visited, or the buses and subways, trains that patients have visited, and people want to know so that they can avoid going there, right? So there is this app that some company made so that if you open the app, you can get a map of the dangerous areas, the areas to avoid. I forgot the name of the app, but that app was very popular, but they could not operate properly because the ISP charged a lot of internet access fees because of SPNP. Because once that app was once that app becomes popular, a lot of data is sent by that ISP to other ISPs. So that ISP has to pay money to other ISPs. So that ISP turns around to the app developer and says, hey, we are losing a lot of money because of you, so you should pay more, right? So that is one community service that suffered from high internet access fees. Now, in terms of the media, same thing. These days, a lot of media provide video, right? Do a lot of services, provide a lot of news through video. Now, you'll notice that you try to, you notice that a lot of those videos are blocked so that foreign people cannot watch them. Why? Because the media have to pay a lot to the Korean ISPs, which means less business for them, right? So it's also affecting the media as well.
Thank you. And how about the non-business entity, Professor?
Oh, I told you about the COVID-19, the community. Yeah.
Oh, semua sudah dijawab Mbak Debo ya. So thank you everyone. See, now it's already 2 p.m. past 10 minutes 10 minutes after 2 p.m. So it's already taking more than 1 hour. So thank you everyone who attend this media briefing. Hopefully our explanation give you a little more backgrounds. Also read our statements both in OpenNet and also in SafeNet. Actually, this is a unique collaboration. This is our first time SafeNet and also OpenNet doing collaboration. For media communication or contact, you can contact us through our hotline, and also you can contact directly to Professor Kaspar through this number. So once again, terima kasih banyak atas kehadirannya. Selamat siang semuanya. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Mas Damar.
Terima kasih banyak. So, Professor Park, are you still there?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
So I'm going to send this statement to the government. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yes, please, please.
And there is a comment already from the Indonesia E-commerce Association.
Mm-hmm.
They said that one of the civil society groups, the telecommunication, the telecommunication society actually again pro hypothesis. They agree with this. They are against our statement.
Oh, okay, good, good.
No, they are against our statement. They said that. So this is gonna be interesting here in Indonesia.
Okay,
So.
okay.
I think what best next is let's see what the reaction from the government first, and then also the other civil society, and hopefully the media will pick up our statements.
And
so
also,
I will send everything. Yeah.
And
yeah.
also,
go ahead, Professor Park.
And if you get that comment from the Telecommunication Society, if you have that in English, please send me so I can, write a response to that. Yeah.
All
right.
Thank you, Professor Park.
Okay. And
Yomi,
can you please send me the link to the statement on SafeNet website? We'll also do the same. Okay.
Okay. I will.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Park.
Also,
yeah.
Also, one more thing. Okay, now I can finish. I recorded the whole thing. I recorded the session. So if you need it, please let me know. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.